Welcome, everybody. So my name is Bull Benjamin. I'm a member with the Twin Cities DSA. Very excited to welcome everybody to coming to the 21st Century Presents Burkina Faso. So we've got a few volunteers and guests here from the Thomas Sankara Center. Um, so yeah, I'll pass it off really quickly to Luisa to introduce herself and to introduce 21st Century DSA.
Yeah. So, first off, just a thank you to our interpreters, Natasha and Jorge, too. They will be providing French to English translation back and forth. This event would not be possible without them. So, a special thanks if you guys could emoji react just to show everyone's collective appreciation for how important they are. And how important they are for international solidarity. You know, we absolutely need interpreters. And so my name's Luisa. I'm on the MPC. I'm a founding member of the 21st Century Socialism caucus, which is part of DSA. And thank you so much for spending your time with us for Saturday to learn about the amazing movement that's going on in Burkina Faso. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Paul, my comrade Paul.
Thank you, Carmen Luisa. So as a reminder, folks, we'll be recording this webinar and adding it all to YouTube to encourage a more comradely experience. We're doing this meeting style, but also it means if you do not wish to be recorded, we ask you to please change your name. So yeah, change your name and change your video setting if you do not want to be recorded. So Lisa ran through how the translation is going to be working. Right now, our speakers are in the French channel. You do not understand French, like the interpreter said. Please jump onto the English channel. And we are joined today by the members of the Thomas Sankara Center in Ouagadougou, like Luisa kind of introduced a little bit. They're doing a lot of important work, and we're very happy to have them here and spend their Saturday with us. So the Thomas Sankara Center is a pan-African library and a center for political education in Sissin, Ouagadougou, in Burkina Faso. They are a lending library that carries books on African and African diasporic history, political economy in the global South, women's liberation in Africa, and other related subjects. They also run an after-school program called the Africa Ye Karambisi. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Students of One United Africa, a children's theater program, as well as a regular film screening, debates, and other community events. So I'll drop a few links in the chat. Interest for 21st Century Socialism. Someone's dropping a donation link in the chat right now as we speak. So if you are interested in seeing more, getting involved, please refer to the chat. So I'll pass it off to Mahmouna and Wendlassida for the presentation. Thank you, everybody.
I am an artist. I am a president of the Cultural Center in Ingara, and this center highlights our values and tradition and our cultural traditions that is more geared towards children. I am also a member of the Thomas Sankara Center, and I'm also a member of the TPA. I think that's it for me as far as presenting. So good evening, everyone, dear colleagues. Good day or good evening, it depends where you are in the world. My name is Wendlassida, Fabrice Simporé. I am the General Secretary for the Thomas Sankara Center for the Liberation and
et
unity
aussi membre
of
du Parti
the
révolutionnaire
African
intellectuel
population, and
panafricain.
also a
Donc,
member of the
c'est
Party
toujours
of
une
the
joie
Revolutionary
de
African and
participer
Pan-African.
à des
It is
conférences
always a joy
pour
to be part of webinars and
parler de
conferences
ce qui se passe au
where
Burkina
we are
Faso,
discussing what
de ce qui
is
se passe
happening
au
in Burkina
Sahel
Faso and throughout the
et
Sahel
les
region,
ressentis, voilà, de la lutte
and
que nous traversons
what
maintenant.
is being seen
Ok,
for
merci
our
beaucoup
struggle
et
right now.
bon
So
panel
thank
à
you
tous.
very much, and good participation, everyone.
Wendlassida, could you please talk about the history of Sankara in Burkina Faso and then related to the movement today under Captain Traoré?
Je voudrais peut-être une petite
Yes, of
clarification.
course.
Vous avez parlé
Let me
d'abord de
have a little
l'histoire
clarification.
du centre. C'est l'histoire du centre Thomas
Do you want
Sankara et
the
après
history of the
l'histoire
center of
du
Thomas Sankara,
du
or do you
capitaine
want
Sankara.
the
S'il vous
story of
plaît, est-ce que vous
Sankara?
pouvez
Can you please
formuler
clarify
la
which
question?
one it is that you would prefer?
Yes, Sankara, the man, the revolutionary.
D'accord, merci bien.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Je pense que un
I
si peu de
think
mots,
that
ça sera un peu difficile de parler
it would be a
surtout de ce grand
little
homme,
difficult
de ce grand héros
to
panafricain
use the words that we have to
qui a
speak about
lutté
this
pour
great hero
son pays, le Burkina
that
Faso,
fought for
pays
this
de
country,
liberté,
Burkina Faso,
qui a lutté pour
and
tout le peuple
he also
africain en
fought
particulier
for the whole
et
African population,
qui s'est sacrifié
and he
pour
sacrificed
sa
himself
lutte.
for this
Ce que
fight.
je peux dire,
What I can say,
je suis né
I I was
un peu
born
après
a
l'assassinat
little bit after
tragique du
the
capitaine
tragic assassination
Thomas
of
Sankara.
Captain Thomas
Mais
Sankara.
ce que je peux dire
But what I
concernant
can
l'homme, c'est
tell
que
you about the
déjà, je ne
man
l'ai pas connu.
is that I did not know
Et
him. I did
je
not
l'ai
meet
connu
him.
par ses œuvres,
I met him through
d'abord
his
ses œuvres
work.
intellectuelles
First, his
et
intellectual
ses
work,
œuvres physiques, ses
and
œuvres
then
visuelles
the physical
que nous
work, the
pouvons
visual
voir un peu
that we
partout au
could
Burkina
see
Faso.
a little bit like all over
Je l'ai
Burkina
connu
Faso.
par
I've known him through
l'impact
the
l'impact
impact
il a
that
fait, l'impact
he has
que
had,
ses œuvres
all the
ont
work that he
émergé
has done
au Burkina Faso, pas
throughout
seulement au
Burkina
Burkina
Faso.
Faso, mais dans tout
And
le
it's not
monde.
just Burkina Faso, it's
Donc,
throughout the world,
ce que je
actually.
peux dire
So
du
what I can
capitaine
say about
Thomas Sankara,
Captain Thomas
c'est que
Sankara is
c'était
that
un homme, c'était
he
la
was
définition de
he
l'intégrité
was the
et de
definition of
l'intégrité
integrity as a man,
et aussi
and as
un homme
well,
honnête,
an
un homme
honest man,
qui n'a jamais hésité
a man who
à
never
se sacrifier
hesitated
pour la
to
cause
sacrifice himself
panafricaine,
for the
pour la cause du bien-être de
Pan-African
tous les
cause,
Africains, pour la
for the
cause de tout le
well-being of
Burkinabé.
all African,
Donc,
for all the
Thomas
Burkinabés.
Sankara, en 4 ans de pouvoir,
Thomas
a
Sankara,
fait
throughout his
un
4 years
travail
of ruling,
assez sérieux, un travail que aucun président
had
du
a
Burkina
work
Faso n'avait
made
jamais eu,
that was really
n'avait jamais pu
important.
faire auparavant.
His work
Donc,
has never
c'est
been
celui-là
done
même qui a mené
before,
le Conseil
and he's the one
national de
who
la Révolution,
created a
celui-là
national
qui
committee
a
for the
permis à
revolution.
tous les Burkinabés de se
He's the
sentir
one who
libres,
permitted all Burkinabe to feel like
tous les
his
prendre leur
sound is a little
destin en
unstable.
main, tous
He
les
also
Burkinabés
helped all the
de pouvoir
Burkinabe to be
s'affirmer
able to
partout où ils
take their
sont.
destiny into their
Donc,
own
j'avais dit tantôt
hand and
que
to
ce n'est pas
affirm
seulement les
themselves and
Burkinabés,
stand tall
mais
in
aussi
where they
le
wherever
peuple
they
africain
are. And it's not
et
just Burkinabes,
aussi le
it's
peuple
the
mondial
whole African
reconnaît
population,
en
and
lui, voilà, un
globally
héros.
also for
Donc,
each and everyone that recognize in him a
actuellement, nous
hero.
pouvons voir beaucoup d'œuvres de
Actually,
Sankara.
we can see
D'abord,
there's a lot of work from
au,
Sankara.
au règne de Sankara, en 4 ans de pouvoir, il a pu
A lot of work throughout his 4 years
atteindre
of
l'autosuffisance alimentaire
reigning,
au Burkina
where
Faso.
he,
Donc, ça
within
veut
those four
dire,
years,
malgré que le
he was
Burkina
able to
Faso,
have
il ne disposait
self-sustainability
pas
as
de
far as
beaucoup de
food and
barrages,
nutrition
vous
in
savez,
Burkina Faso.
le Burkina Faso se trouve au Sahel.
You know, the
Donc, il y a
Burkina
peu de
Faso is located in
précipitations
the
d'eau,
Sahel,
il ne pleut pas
so there's
régulièrement,
not a lot
mais avec
of
son courage et
rain.
avec
There's
sa
a lot of
conviction,
drought,
il a pu
but with his conviction and his courage, he was
inspirer tous les
able
Burkinabés
to
à
inspire
pouvoir
all
s'affirmer pour
Burkinabé
leur
to
indépendance, pour leur
affirm
souveraineté,
themselves
pour
and
construire des
for their
barrages
independence
qui vont
and then
vacciner
sovereignty in order to
en moins
build
de 2 semaines
dams
et
and to
20 millions,
also
plus de 2 millions
be
d'enfants.
up to date with
Il
vaccination for
a
almost over
construit
20
des
million
barrages, il a
children.
construit des logements
He
décents,
built
qui,
housing,
qui
decent
a
housing for
surtout,
the
qui
population,
a surtout
and
permis
particularly
à tous
it
les
helped
Burkinabés
all
de
Burkinabes
pouvoir compter
to
sur
be
eux-mêmes
able to
et aussi
rely on
sur le
themselves.
côté intellectuel,
And when we think about the
ou plutôt
intellectual side of
politique.
things
Lui-même, il
and
a
or
dit,
political,
un
himself,
militaire
he
sans
mentioned
formation
that a
politique et
military man
idéologique est
without
un
any
criminel en
formation
puissance.
is
Donc,
just a
il a
criminal
vraiment
waiting to
travaillé
happen.
à
So he really
conscientiser le peuple,
worked
à
in order to be able to bring awareness to
tous les
the
militaires
population, to bring
afin
awareness
qu'ils
to the
puissent
military
travailler
uh,
pour le
group
bien-être
in
de
order
leur
to
société
work
et pour le
to be
bien-être
in
de tout le
service for
peuple,
the
et a
society,
aussi
for the
considéré tous
well-being of
les
the
autres
population.
peuples
And he
africains
also
comme leurs
considered
frères,
every
à ne
other
pas se battre
population
pour
that is within the African continent,
les
and he
intérêts.
considered them
Donc,
as
malheureusement,
brothers
à cause de
and
cette
not
quête-là
looking at
pour la
just interest.
souveraineté, bien sûr, il
So
était beaucoup
as he
combattu par
was
plusieurs personnes,
seeking sovereignty,
par
he had
les
a lot
impérialistes,
of
par
people,
les néocolonialistes.
imperialism
Donc,
and
malheureusement,
neocolonialism that
cela a
was
coûté sa
against
vie.
him,
Donc,
and that cost him
a
his
coûté sa
life.
vie. Donc, malheureusement,
So
l'impérialiste a
unfortunately,
su compter sur
imperialism was able to
des traîtres en
was
Afrique,
able to
comme
rely on
Blaise
traders
Compaoré,
in Africa.
qui a
And
malheureusement
just like Ibrahim
encaissé sa mort.
Traoré, we can see right
Donc,
now he's
lui-même, il
facing,
avait dit,
unfortunately,
tuer
Thomas
Sankara, un
Sankara, it
million de
cost him his
Sankara
life.
naîtront.
And
Donc, ça
as he
veut dire
always
que
said,
la
if you kill
mort
one
n'a pas
Sankara, a
arrêté
million Sankara will
les idées de
rise.
ce grand homme.
So as we
La
can
mort n'a
see,
pas été
killing
en vain.
him did not kill
Sa
his
mort a permis
ideology.
à tout
His
le monde,
death permitted
que ce soit
to
les Burkinabés, que ce
everyone,
soit
that
les
it is
Africains, que ce
Burkinabe or
soit
Africans in general or
d'autres personnes du monde
any other
entier, à
people
pouvoir
throughout the
s'inspirer
world
de cette lutte-là.
to be
Donc,
inspired
on
with
peut
his
dire
fight.
c'est ce qui se
So
passe
we can
présentement
see
au Burkina
that
Faso,
what's going
à
on right
travers
now
la
in Burkina
vision, à
Faso
travers la
is
lutte pour la
a
souveraineté du
vision of
capitaine
the fight
Traoré,
and
donc qui porte
the vision
Thomas Sankara
also
comme
of
un repère dans
Captain
toutes ses actions.
Traoré, who
Donc,
uses
c'est ce que je peux
Captain,
dire de
sorry,
façon
Thomas
résumée
Sankara
de ce grand homme que je n'ai pas connu,
as
mais
a
que j'ai
mentor
connu
and
par
as
sa vision, que j'ai
an
connu par
ideal.
ses
So
actes.
I have not met
Merci
him
beaucoup.
personally, but I've met him through his vision. So thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very much, Wendlassida, for that answer. I think it was very insightful to hear, part of the legacy of Thomas Sankara, the manner in which he did. So for the next question, I think we're pretty interested in seeing what's been going on in Burkina Faso today, with Ibrahim Traoré and the rest of the Sahel states. Um, so I guess our next question to the guests are: how does this legacy inform what's happening today? What are the connections and the significance of the movement today in Burkina Faso?
Ok.
Okay, yes.
Les connexions
The connections
de ce qui se passe aujourd'hui.
with what is
Euh,
happening
déjà,
today.
moi, je pense que si on va parler de connexion, on va voir
If we are going to
l'importance
talk
en fait
about connection, the
d'éveil de
importance
conscience
of this
et
awareness,
surtout de la jeunesse.
this
Parce qu'au temps de
awakening,
Sankara, il
especially
y
the
avait
youth.
cette
In the
révolution
time of
qui a été menée
Sankara, there was
par
this
la jeunesse
revolution that was led
et,
really by the youth.
et Ibrahim Traoré aussi.
And Ibrahim
Dans cette
Traoré, we can see,
période-là, il y
is
a
doing the
aussi
same
la
thing.
jeunesse. Seulement que moi, je pense que au
But
temps de Sankara,
what I think
il
is
y avait
that during the
peut-être un
time of
manque
Thomas
de
Sankara, there was
moyens
probably
qui permettent
a
aux jeunes de
lack
mieux
of tools
de
in
mieux
order for the
s'exprimer. Je
youth
pense
to be
que
able to
ça va
express
beaucoup jouer
themselves
en fait
better.
sur la
And this
révolution
really
de
kind of
Sankara.
played on
Mais la
Thomas
révolution,
Sankara's
à très court
revolution.
moment,
But actually,
je pense
right
que tous les
now,
moyens sont
the
mis
revolution is a little different because all the tools and every means
All
that
the
we
means
can
are made
use
available
is on our side in order to be able
for
to
this revolution to
succeed.
take place.
And what I can say, throughout his action, we can see the
And I can
continuation
see
of
that
what
in his
Sankara
actions,
had
we see the
started.
opportunity of Sankara.
So what I say is like a Sankarist is based on what Sankara has done when he was putting the importance on education. And he wanted girls to go to school, and he was pushing on education, he was pushing on health also, the health sector. Sankara had pushed a vast campaign of vaccination and of updates and of education. And we can see today with everything that is happening, even with all the terrorism and everything that's happening, we can see how Ibrahim Traoré is following the same dynamism, sorry. I know that there were maybe about 100-something schools that were closed, and now they opened them, and we can see that there are loans that are made, and then we can see also when we look at healthcare, there is a lot of exams and a lot of intervention are being offered free, like for cancer, chemotherapy. Those are tests and those are treatments that were very expensive, and now they are being offered for free. We can see how Thomas Sankara had worked for this, and now we can see that it's happening again. And you can see that there is an important campaign being led in order to have self-sustainability when it comes to food-wise. And I think that in a country, when you have self-sustainability, when it comes to being able to feed yourself, 50% of the problem that you have in the country will be dealt with because it is something that is really important. Self-sustainability when it comes to food is extremely important. It is just the evolution of the revolution. I see a lot of similarity when it comes to this with Ibrahim Traoré. And there is a connection with people. Thomas Sankara was very, very close to his people. He listens to his people, and he was making sure that he was doing the journey with them from the smallest to the biggest. He listened and he took into account everything that was said, and he tries to push forth everything that could help his people. For example, let me take, how can I say it? Like, okay,
Le gouvernement a instauré une loi qui dit que toutes les querelles qu'on doit faire, toutes les querelles ne doivent pas nous amener au tribunal.
Every time you have to go to the Ibrahim Traoré did mention that it's not every fight that has to lead us to go to the legal system with litigation. It is very important of what he's saying. We understand what he means. He means that sometimes we have to just take into account that it might be taken care of amicably. It doesn't have to go through litigation. Another example, when you go, people who are in prison, he would prefer to rehabilitate them and have them work in the cities in order to reduce their time, because they also help psychologically. They know that they are part of developing the country, and then it helps because they know that their time is being diminished. So I can really see a lot of connection between the two, between Ibrahim Traoré and Thomas Sankara. I don't know if I answered your question well.
No, you definitely did answer it well. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Um, so we got about 6 more minutes. I guess like our last question before we open it up to the guests would be, what is the financial situation now in Burkina Faso? And maybe kind of what are some threats?
Ok. Alors, la situation actuelle au Burkina Faso, elle est partagée.
Well, the situation in
Selon
Burkina
moi,
Faso is
la
shared.
situation actuelle au Burkina Faso, elle est Au début,
in my view,
pensez
the
qu'elle a pris
situation
un
in
coup.
Burkina
Est-ce
Faso
que vous pensez
currently,
au début, elle a pris un coup? Parce que on a décidé en fait de bannir tout ce qui est aide. Et on est
we
tous d'accord
decided
que du coup, quand
to
on pense
banish
que
everything that had to
il
do
n'y a
with
plus
aid.
d'aide, tout de suite on pense qu'on est. Et ça c'est pas au niveau du gouvernement, mais je pense, je parle en général au niveau de la population. Qui, bon, je pense qu'ils
This
n'avaient
is
pas
not at
trop
the level of
compris
the
en fait l'aide. L'aide
government.
est
It's
coupée,
more
comment on va
in
faire?
terms of the
Mais tout de suite, tout le
population.
monde fait le prix et on a commencé à comprendre que
And every time,
avec
uh,
ce qu'on
right
a,
away, we're able to understand that
avec ce qu'on
with
a
what we've
comme
got
volonté,
and
on
our
peut
willpower,
faire de belles choses. Et
we
qu'est-ce que
can
le
do beautiful
président a fait?
things.
Il a instauré la, la
And
contribution patriotique à tous les Burkinabés. Par exemple, quand tu achètes
what has been done is he has reestablished the
de
patriotic
production,
contribution for all Burkinabe
tu
people.
reverses automatiquement 5% en fait de l'achat de tes passes pour la reconstruction du pays.
5%
Combien de
is
Burkinabés achètent des passes
devoted to
chaque jour?
the reconstruction
Quand tu
of the
achètes
country.
de la
When
boisson,
we
c'est pareil.
when we
Il y a toujours,
purchase
par exemple, sur la
drinks,
boisson, on a ajouté 50 francs, je crois, sur chaque boisson qu'achète un Burkinabé. Et les 50 sont
so
versés pour la
so
contribution de la reconstruction du
50
pays. Et c'est avec
out of 50 drinks,
ces cotisations
this
que fait
amount is
les
uh,
Burkinabés
marked
qu'on
out
arrive
for
à
the reconstruction of the country,
s'équiper en armement et aussi pour acheter des machines agricoles.
and
Donc,
also to purchase
actuellement,
agricultural machinery.
l'économie, et on arrive à construire des hôpitaux, on
And
arrive
we're able to
développer
build
des écoles,
hospitals,
on
we're
arrive
able to
à
build
payer
schools,
les examens dans les hôpitaux, on
and we're
arrive
able to fund
comment on va
the
dire,
examinations in
à
hospitals,
construire des banques. Il y a des banques
and
qu'on a
also to
construites.
build banks.
Oui, il y a des banques qu'on a construites. C'est des banques qui permettent aux Burkinabés d'aller prendre du crédit.
These are banks that allow Burkinabe's people to access to credit
investir.
and to be able to
Et
invest.
donc, je pense que l'économie, elle est
So
actuellement sur une bonne voie. Une bonne
I think the economy is currently on a good path
en train de se relever. Elle est en
and
train de
starting to get on its feet.
elle-même. Il n'y a pas d'aide, il n'y a pas de prendre de
There's no
crédit,
aid,
je sais pas dans quelle
no lines
banque,
of
à la
credit
FMI ou quoi, pour
or from the International Monetary
construire en
Fund.
fait ce pays-là. Tout ce que vous voyez sous Ibrahim Traoré a été cotisé par les Burkinabés et
So
construit.
what we can see is that with Traoré, the Burkinabe people have been able to draw the benefits.
Wendlassida, I don't know if you want to add to anything that she said.
Il n'y a pas de souci, c'est avec plaisir que je le ferai.
It's with,
Donc,
with my
la
pleasure,
camarade avait parlé
I would
de
say.
situation partagée.
Comrade
Il
had
faut comprendre
talked
que
about a
lorsque le
shared
capitaine
situation. It's
Traoré
important to
venait au
understand that
pouvoir,
when Captain Traoré came to power,
il y avait aussi une confusion
there was
au
also some
sein de
confusion
l'État, parce que de l'État
within the
burkinabé, parce
state,
que vous savez,
the Burkinabe state, because
malheureusement,
you know that
c'est pas tous
unfortunately,
les gouvernements qui divulguent
not
la
all the
bonne,
governments
la réalité.
share
C'est pas
the
tous les
reality.
gouvernements qui
Not
divulguent
all governments
la
share
sincérité de ce qui se passe.
or
Voilà,
convey
donc
the sensitivity of what's going on.
lorsque le président Traoré prenait le
So when
pouvoir,
President Traoré took power,
il faut comprendre que
it's
le
important to
souhait
understand that
était
the
vraiment
desire was really
de combattre le terrorisme.
to
Donc,
combat terrorism.
ils ont été quelques mois. Ils ont
So after a few
compris
months,
une grande
they
réalité des
understood
choses.
a
Parce que
great
premièrement,
reality of
d'abord, il n'y avait
things.
pas d'armes.
First of all, there
Vous allez
wasn't
vous rendre
any
compte que le
arms.
Burkina Faso,
You will realize that Burkina
qui se dit
Faso,
un pays indépendant,
which is
l'armée n'avait pas d'armes.
it's said to be an independent state,
Bien même
the
que
army
les
had
armes
no
qu'ils
arms, no
utilisaient
weapons.
étaient des armes défectueuses. C'était des armes qui
The
ne pouvaient
weapons available to the
pas
army were faulty.
permettre à l'armée
These
burkinabé de
were not
pouvoir faire
weapons that
face
would allow
à la lutte
the Burkinabe
contre le
army
terrorisme.
to to face off against the terrorists. You know that since 2015, after the departure, after the revolution, when the Burkinabé people rose up to say no to the old president Compaoré, a lot of things came up as well, because the president Compaoré was himself the one who gave shelter to terrorism. He was also the one who took part in negotiations with terrorism. So this is why Burkina Faso was not being attacked, because it was under the shelter of terrorism. So there's lots of different strands of terrorism that came and took shelter in Burkina Faso to attack other countries we border, such as Mali. So that after departure of Compaoré, a lot of things revealed themselves. These terrorists used to benefit from a great deal of support from President Compaoré, and now they found themselves without aid. Since the tap had been cut, they were trying to reclaim their rights from the president who replaced Compaoré. Since he wasn't in touch with him, he decided to cut off this aid, and these terrorists turned against the Burkinabé people. There was huge amounts of terrorist attacks against the Burkinabé people. So when President Traoré came to power, he wasn't really aware of all the issues. There wasn't any arms or weapons to effectively fight off with terrorists, and this allowed the situation, at any rate, allowed the power to shut off this period, because it was for a certain period, to be able to fight off the terrorists. So they found all the means available. When President Amiba fled the country, they were able to tap into the funds of the country. They almost emptied out the countries, or the treasury of the country was practically empty. So this was something like a renewal. So with his goodwill, President Traoré made an appeal to the people of Burkina Faso, and people have responded favorably, making a request to the people. First, there was an appeal to the people that President Traoré made, and the Burkinabé people responded positively, because the people understood that President Traoré was there for the people. He was there for a good way forward, for a good struggle, and this meant that the people responded favorably. And of course, there was a sacrifice, and the comrade talked about some donations and contributions, and that this was necessary against terrorists. And this allowed, at any rate, the Burkinabé state gave the state the means, understanding the geopolitical context, that it wasn't very, very favorable, because Burkina Faso was not able to freely choose its partners. So there were some partners who were imposed on Burkina Faso. So you're going to understand that Burkina Faso, even without the necessary means, it wasn't able to equip itself with the weapons to fight against terrorism. But at one point, the government of Captain Traoré was forced to end this cooperation, which wouldn't allow the country to really achieve sovereignty in a unipolar context, from a unipolar context to a multipolar context. So the part of this sovereignty has to do with dealing with partners who are able to treat us properly, treat us from equal to equal on an equal to equal basis. And this is how Burkina Faso is able to approach Russia, as well as others, many other partners, such as Turkey, and also Iran, for the purchase of weapons. This has allowed Burkina Faso to face the struggle against the terrorists, because when President Traoré came to power, more than half of Burkina Faso was controlled by terrorists. So there was a real combat that took place in this context, on this side. At the same time, we have to understand that Traoré, we would understand that he came to power through a coup d'etat, but this was a revolutionary coup d'etat. But at first there was a coup d'etat which wasn't supported by the people, and he only lasted for 6 months. So when people from all the Burkina Fasos felt involved in this context of revolution, the Burkinabé people made a huge sacrifice to contribute to fight against the terrorists, and also because we're in a revolutionary context, and we're touching on various sectors. Our comrade talked about the issue of health. There are many projects that were launched for a very long time regarding healthcare. There's some examples such as the treatment of cancer and chemotherapy, which became free for the population, which used to be very, very expensive. I would also add that schools, the improvement of conditions, the infrastructure is being built, a new project that was at the presidential initiative, which will allow Burkina Faso to build all the necessary infrastructure that rhyme with revolution and are in tune with the development of society.
So because of the time, we've got only time for one more question, and that question has to be, how can we support the work at the Sankara Center, and what can people do, to be in solidarity with you?
Okay. Donc, on peut, désolé
I apologize that I'm taking so much time. Those are questions that are really we take to heart and try to explain as well as possible. What it is that you can do in order to support this project is that began with Thomas Sankara. There's many ways. I initially spoke about this presidential initiative, and that can help to support the construction of Burkina Faso. There are many sectors. There are orphanage, there are FTS. You have soldiers that have fallen. There's also the Patriotic Fund that can be supported as well. You have to understand that the support that is needed is on multiple aspects. I will add a little bit on what I've just said and how you can participate. I think that there is a technological war. We have false information, disinformation online that is being propagated, especially on those channels, those imperialist channel, because they're trying to sabotage those patriotic actions, those revolutionary actions that are being led in Burkina Faso. So this is one way to contribute also in your way is to counter that disinformation, those false information that are being circulated. They are really putting all the stops to have a vast campaign of disinformation about Burkina Faso. They will talk about military actions and etc. without having any formal proof of what is happening. So you have to understand that when President Traoré took power, it did not please to all the partners. There's a lot of people who lost their position and saw their interest dwindle. So, in order to compensate what they are trying to do, they feel obligated to sabotage all the actions, all the patriotical actions that are being led. So, there's a lot of misinformation. And also the terrorism are the one pushing forth those false information and certain media also, and they are disseminating those actions. So it is very sad to see that media that are said to be reliable are the ones that are sharing misinformation that is being pushed forth by the terrorists. And we can say that the imperialists also are doing everything that they can in order to fight against our cause because they lost a lot of interest in Burkina Faso and throughout the Sahel. So in order to help us, the best way would be for you to help us share the right information for the Burkinabé. We are Burkinabé. We live in Burkina Faso. We are well positioned to understand what is going on. If we are not in safety and security in our own country, if we are threatening our own country, with our own patriotic obligation, we will denounce it. But this is not the case. We are in a context, a revolutionary context, and we pay attention to what's going on the international face, and we continue to have conversation and discussion with the Burkinabé in order for everybody to understand what's going on in Burkina Faso and throughout the Sahel.
That was beautiful. Thank you. We do have a question. One of the people who helped plan the webinar, Tristan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for all this information, for taking the time to speak with us. So we are socialists in the United States being the global purported hegemon and the primary imperialist power. And so our relationship to the military here, situated here, is very different, I think, than in the global South. Whereas on the left in the United States, there's an antagonistic relationship with the military due to it being an imperialist military here. And sometimes I think in the United States, as socialists, it's difficult for us to understand how the military may be different or have a different social base or have a potential for revolutionary potential in the global South. And so if you could talk about maybe a bit more about Traoré himself, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't know a whole lot about his background. That'd be very helpful. Also, the social base of the military. And I'm also very curious. So in the United States, the threat of terrorism is used in a reactionary way to curtail freedom, and it tends to support the right in the United States, the threat of terrorism. But the threat of terrorism in a place like Burkina Faso, where it is very much so affecting normal people's lives on a day-to-day basis, is different. And so I'm curious about how the military as an institution is different in Burkina Faso, and also how it has a revolutionary potential there that maybe doesn't necessarily have in the United States.
Ok, merci beaucoup pour cette question.
So thank you very much for this questions. And it is very interesting, and we can touch on this. When you, first of all, I would like to thank everyone, free people who are in the United States, because we do follow as well what's going on throughout the diaspora. And we see that there is an immense support for the Burkinabé people and for Ibrahim Traoré as well. You know that following following the general that is leading AFRICOM, and where he was accusing President Traoré, there was a large campaign of support for President Traoré. So we are extremely grateful for that, and we thank you for that. As far as putting the attention on, let's see, if you go on the tourism site on the United States, you can see that Burkina Faso is in red, and that they discourage their population to travel, or they forbid American citizen to come to Burkina Faso. I was born in Burkina Faso. I was raised in Burkina Faso. I am still in Burkina Faso. And you have to understand that the security aspect of Burkina Faso has tremendously changed since the apparition of Ibrahim Traoré. There is nowhere in Burkina Faso that the military do not have access. There, we have been witnessed of many villages where the soldiers are great FDS soldiers took control. So that allows us to travel freely throughout Burkina Faso. We do not have any worries about navigating the country, and through the capital also, we don't have any threat. We travel on our roads throughout different counties in Burkina Faso, and we travel from Bafoura to Koudougou and Bayako, and we go through the different provinces in Burkina Faso, and there are no difficulties, and it's very safe. So it is just to let you know that you can travel safely to Burkina Faso. So you understand that what is being put on the department site in the United States is to try to isolate Burkina Faso in order to discourage people from supporting. It's to discourage people from visiting Burkina Faso. When we are living quietly, we are pushing for serious work against terrorism. Of course, you will find certain terrorist acts here and there that are isolated, but you have to understand that those threats are quickly taken care of by our military. And our military are doing a tremendous work in order to seek out all those terrorism cells, and going through the different counties and also in the country. And they are seeking them in order to find them and arrest them. And the work that they are doing is extraordinary work. But if maybe let me try to use numbers. The United States is a big country, but let's see if there is a threat, daily threats. I think that we follow the actuality and see what's going on with the other countries, but not just the United States, but France also. And we can see that there are some attacks sometimes that you may not consider as terrorist attacks, but you will see that, you know, firearms and weapons and and those type of threats and attacks, we cannot say that Burkina Faso, we live that type of reality if we have to compare the amount of threats with firearms and the attacks that's happening in the United States. We can't even compare them. So we cannot say that Burkina Faso is not one of the most calm places to reside. Burkina Faso is pretty mature when it comes to anti-terrorism work, and we can simplify it and we can clarify it and also state the effort that our military is doing and how they control the different territories in Burkina Faso for the Burkinabé. Most of the threats and most of the attacks that they try to put forth are controlled and are repressed. So you need to understand that President Traoré has his conviction through with his other colleagues, and they are doing an immense and a tremendous work in order to allow every Burkinabé to feel safe at home.
We have another question. Nat?
Yes, hang on, let me get on video. Hi, thank you so much for being here. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I was curious. It was obviously very important to Sankara, elevating the status of women, and he had a lot of different programs for women, and I was curious if Traoré has been continuing that tradition as well. So thank you so much.
Ok, merci beaucoup, madame.
Thank you very much. Yes, Traoré, how can I say, he is one of those first presidents that really puts the emphasis on the fight for women and equality with women. President Sankara was considered as a feminist president because back in the days, President Sankara's did not have a particular way of saying that it would not be acceptable for a young lady not to go to school. Women had a very important position in the government, and Sankara wanted to give this trust for women to the point that they should affirm themselves in every sector. So we can say what happened during Sankara's time had an impact on the way the President Traoré is taking power and leading. You have to understand that the situation is a little bit different. There is not a situation that is safety, and it was not as menacing during Sankara's time. But to touch on the women emancipation topic, you have to understand that in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré has done a tremendous work to push women's rights. Let's talk about families. When the military are fallen soldiers, unfortunately, the women are widowed and the child are orphaned. And before, there was not really any attention paid for these women's life. And people didn't really care about what happened to those widowed. And these women, those widowed women, often were left alone. And President Traoré was the first one to touch upon this topic, and he wants to protect every widowed woman from fallen soldiers in order for all the rights the retirement rights, the military veteran rights that were left from this soldiers can be directly transferred to the widowed, and of course taking care of the children as well. And what he did afterward.
Also favored these women who had no work and had terrible situations to be able to integrate them easily into state institutions or firms, companies. And it's also a big effort in terms of industrialization from the state. Just barely a month ago, President Traoré opened a factory. He opened various factories last year, and these factories have also allowed these widows to go and work directly to be able to meet their needs. Also, a very particular thing that we would highlight of President Traoré is someone who loves and respects women. He's someone who values women. Most of his interventions, speeches, whether nationally or internationally, he always brings to light and highlights the issue of women, to value the value of women. Before, women were not allowed to assert themselves, whether it be in the military or anywhere else. But Traoré, this has changed. And although there is threats from terrorism, there's also this work that's been done and lots of initiatives specifically on women. And also in parallel, if you also understand, there's a great support from among women for President Traoré. So they're not put to one side. They're very highly regarded. There's a great struggle. The struggle for women, it continues. Paraphrasing President Sankara's word, a revolution cannot come to fruition without the liberation of women. We are in a revolutionary context, and there is a real struggle. There's a real commitment by President Traoré, because we cannot, these go hand in hand. When we talk about revolution, we must continue to improve the living conditions of women to be able to be able, if you pretend that if you aspire to be a revolutionary. Thank you.
Okay. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. And so I just want to end it by saying thank you so much for your time. Wendlassida and Mahmouna, we have dropped a link to the GoFundMe if anybody would like to donate. And thank you so much for your time. And we have recorded this. We hope to get it up on YouTube. And yes, we've dropped it again in the chat. And if you are interested in helping to organize more of these webinars on revolutions in the global South, please go ahead and first off, follow Burkina Books on Instagram, but then please fill out our interest form, which has been linked in the chat several times. So we are going to stop it there. And please give a round of applause either through emojis or in person to our wonderful speakers.